and Name with another video, now with how to draw scenarios part 2. But first I would like to remember that this is a part of a playlist about introduction to perspective. And the links on my Instagram and the Discord server of the channel are available in the video description. On the previous video, I'm talking about part 1. I made a basic introduction focused in a more theoretical part. Here on the part 2, we'll use the previous knowledge as a way to apply correctly the techniques to draw a background in perspective. On the part 1, our subject was a hotel lobby. Now I decided to draw something different, with a Japanese aesthetic. First, we need to put our basic idea on the paper. For that, we'll use thumbnails. On each thumbnail, I will use 3 tones, a more darker tone, a middle tone, and a lighter tone. The darker tone will represent the foreground, the middle tone will represent the middle ground, and the lighter one will represent the background. On the first thumbnail, I started sketching my basic idea using references. For the first thumbnail, I just switched the degree of my camera, so I was able to capture a different angle. On the third one, I used a fisheye just to have a different exploration. To be serious, I normally don't do thumbnails. I prefer to draw the flow plane of my environment. I can say my thumbnails are my flow planes, basically. Because on the top view, I'm able to explore and map all the things that I want in my scene. But I think that drawing thumbnails, it's important to visualize your idea. Here on the top view, I use the knowledge from my previous videos like multiplying and dividing dimensions in perspective, and I also mapped all the things that I wanted and the position that I wanted to be able to put these accurately in perspective. So now I already have my thumbnails and I also have my flow plane. My next step is to start planning or designing the objects that will make part of the environment. So our environment take place in a site that have a Japanese aesthetic. And based on my reference, I saw a lot of different types of light sources. I decided to design the light sources here. I started with the side view and I made the basic mapping of the idea of the light source that I had. To clarify my idea, I decided to put it into perspective. I used the techniques of dividing and multiplying dimensions in perspective to be able to place accurately our light source inside our box in perspective. After that, I made a basic experimentation putting color on the light source, and I used the basic knowledge of drawing shadows in perspective. I already have a video here on the channel talking about this. After that, I spent my time designing a different type of signposts with different ways to attach to the walls and stuff. And I also explored different types based on my references. At this stage, my goal was to have a basic idea of what type of objects will make part of my environment and how they will behave in relation to each other and the other elements. My next step was to start drawing the buildings. We are using a Japanese aesthetic for this, so I started deconstructing a food store. I started drawing my basic grid in a front view, and I used the techniques to divide and multiply dimension to be able to map all the things. And I spent a lot of time having ideas, looking to my reference and make my own changes to the way that I wanted. With the front view done, I switched to the side view. For that, I used the measurements from the front view to start building my side view. And based on my reference, I used the techniques to divide and multiply dimensions as a way to literally place accurately all the features of the store that we are deconstructing. You can see that the idea of the front view and the idea of the side view matches, so we'll be able to put these accurately in perspective. To put these into perspective, I used 2 vanishing points and I started drawing our box in perspective that represents the space that our store will be placed. In this example, we already have our front and our side view planned. I decided to place my front view and my side view on the box in perspective. The next step was just to connect the points and make these feel believable in perspective. So you can see that with my front and my side view, I'm able to literally move this building to any position in the space. After that, I started deconstructing another store. I started with the front view and I made all the measurements for my front view, and I also used the measurements for the front view to start drawing the side one. And I did the same things that I did on the previous example. To put it into perspective, I started drawing my box in perspective, and I also placed the front and the side view in perspective. So I decided to deconstruct two buildings, but for those I just drew the front view and I just extended the things that I wanted. But I think that you can see that the process to deconstruct the buildings are the same. You start with a front view, you will make all the plannings that you want, and after that we can switch to the side view, and if you want you can also draw the top and the floor plane or the bottom view. With all the orthographic views, we'll be able to literally place your building or your object in any position in the space, in any perspective. So after that, I decided to start drawing my scenario in perspective. For that, I started drawing my floor plane. For that, I decided to make corrections on the previous floor plane that I did previously, to be able to put it accurately in perspective. Unfortunately, my Clip Studio Paint crashed and I lose the file with the time lapses, so I can also share with you the final result. But I literally just did the same thing that we did when we was planning the objects and the buildings. I drew the boxes in perspective, I placed the views inside the boxes, and I started drawing. My idea with this video is to show to you that you have to plan a lot of things to draw a scenario. You have to be able to observe, deconstruct, reconstruct, design, and redesign a lot of things in your environment or scenario. You might be asking why I will use all of these lines, all of these techniques, all of these measurements to draw. My answer is that you know that you don't have the knowledge to draw something. So first, you will need to observe, think, make the guidelines, and start like copying the thing, deconstructing the thing, to be able to redraw the thing in a different angle. So in the beginning, you will need to draw these using the perspective line, the techniques that I showed here, like divide and multiply dimensions in perspective, to be able to have a muscle memory. So when you start to be more confident, we'll be able to draw this without needing all of these lines. So you have to respect the process, do it step by step to be able to grow and upgrade your skills. So this is the last video from the playlist Introduction to Perspective. I already recorded the video that follows this one, is how to draw shadows in perspective. I will leave the card here. If I helped you, consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and enable the bell to be notified of new updates here on the channel. And the links for my Instagram and the Discord server of the channel are available in the video description. Thank you, until the next video, bye bye.